What is something only kids who grew up poor understand? How to take care of your shit. I grew up a poor kid in a very rich school district. It amazed me at every turn how callously people handled or treated their possessions. My friends' families would just destroy furniture or tools or vehicles or clothes or any one of 1,000 things like it was nothing because A, they never had to deal with it because their parents did everything for them, and B, they had enough money to not care. My friends who come over to my house now still don't understand, and they get frustrated when I ask them to stop doing things. Little things: don't bounce coins off my wood furniture, don't spill shit all over the place all the time, don't just leave glassware lying out everywhere where it's bound to get knocked over, don't leave books lying open face down, put up food you don't eat, don't just sit on everything. When you're poor, every possession is valuable, and you have to take care of them to make them last. Edit. Damn, all the responses in this thread hit close to home. Sad face. Being ashamed to invite your friends over to your house to play, or for birthday parties, or anything really. The house I grew up in was clean and well taken care of, and in hindsight it really wasn't so bad. But when all my friends had big, nice houses in upscale neighborhoods, and I lived in a tiny modular home in the woods, I was quite self-conscious about my situation. The funny thing is now I make plenty of money, and I pay ridiculous rent for a high-rise apartment that's way smaller than that house I used to be so ashamed of. The feeling when you see a parent concerned, or overhear parents discussing, over financial woes, and you go and get the few dollars you have saved up and bring it to the table and say, "Here, mom/dad. I don't really need to save up for that, whatever. I heard you crying/ saying that we needed money. I want to help," then throwing your bank or $2 to $3 on the table and offer it up for survival. Followed by the feeling of trying not to cry as your parent grabs you up in their arms, also fighting back the tears and says, "No, honey, that's all right. I really appreciate your offer, but you keep your money. You saved it, we will be okay. I promise." Edit. Not that anything like that has ever happened to me. Gifts on Christmas and birthdays are things you need, not fun things. Christmas is usually when I got all my soap and shampoo for the next year. Clothes come from Goodwill, Salvation Army, Savers, etc. if they weren't coming out of something's lost and found. School yearbooks and pictures are unnecessary. The best meals of the week would be the half-eaten food my mother brought home from her waitress job at the country club. Being afraid to ask for things because you know the answer will be no, and getting used to not being able to afford things. Eventually, you just throw out school flyers about school shirts, field trips that cost money, lunch money, school supplies, dances, trips, anything that costs anything. You learn to accept what you have and make it work, and when you actually get something, you understand that it actually means something and costs your parents money they had to work for. Once I had my first job, I actually wasted the money on things I just kind of wanted because I had the luxury of being able to. It took a long time to learn to manage money wisely, and it's still a process, because when you never have it, it's hard to understand how to hold on to it. It's really not things I did, it's more like the things I didn't do. I'd always hear about my friends going on some wonderful vacation or getting some kind of great present for their birthday or Christmas. Field trips, retreats, summer vacations, all of it. Meanwhile, I was sitting at home playing Asinius the whole time. That's not a dated reference, BTW. I'm fucking 20. We had a school uniform, so that was fine. But the occasional non-uniform day would be horrifically embarrassing. I often pretended to forget and turn up in uniform anyway. Now I earn a reasonable amount, I still can't believe I can buy stuff whenever, like a book or a coffee or a new shirt. Part of my 32-year-old head of department brain is still a poor 8-year-old waiting patiently for Christmas. Unfortunately, my father liked to frequently remind me how much I cost to keep alive. My mother loves me unconditionally, but I always felt, especially after getting back from Dad's house, that I was such a burden for her, and that she was just faking it so I wouldn't whine at her. Eventually, it finally sunk in that she does actually love me, and she's my best friend now. Smiley face. I suppose, though, that what I learned from being poor was just how much children truly cost. If you can barely afford to support yourself, as it is, having a child is the stupidest thing you could do, not just for yourself, but for the child as well. Also, all that biz about taking care of your things until they literally disintegrated in endless spaghetti, and mom bringing home free beer t-shirts that 9-year-old me had no qualms about wearing to school because they had no holes. All that stuff as well. Sometimes, most of the time, you can't get what you want. With time, you start wanting less. This actually still happens now. I earn money, not much, but in my country it's medium wage, and I never feel the need for it. When I started to work, this was a big problem. I didn't have that drive for more. I still don't buy some of the things that I didn't have in childhood. I think I could easily earn more, but I'm satisfied. When the whole family sits around the table, staring at the last piece of food, trying their hardest not to snatch it up and eat it, fake laughing, and saying, "No thanks, you go ahead and eat it. I've had my fill, really I'm okay," and then wistfully watch from the corner of your eye as it gets eaten. Sad face. My brothers usually got it since they played sports. I remember them always trying to get my mom to eat it. She always said she wasn't hungry and never ate with us. She made sure we were full and would eat our scraps or chew on ice cubes. Bawling my face off as I'm typing this. I really, honestly think that I appreciate my belongings more than my friends who grew up middle class or rich. When we were growing up, we had shelter, but rarely would have real food, mostly ramen, bologna sandwiches, things like that, or many expensive things. Shopped at Goodwill, all of that. So when I got a Game Boy Advance for my birthday in 6th grade, for example, that my dad saved all year to get me, I cherished that thing like it was gold. Meanwhile, other kids my age were complaining about how they didn't get the right color or the right game. My mind was, and still is, blown when people are so unappreciative. Someone gave you something for free as a gift, and you're going to complain that the awesome, expensive, free thing wasn't the color you would have preferred? GTFO with all that nonsense. Growing up poor as shit made me resent my single mother a lot, and really made me want to rebel. I guess I figured she was just refusing to give me things because she didn't want me to have them. I was embarrassed every time someone asked for my phone number, and whenever other kids talked about something they saw on TV. I think I developed a lot of identity issues because of this that still affects me now. I remember every time I made one of my very few friends laugh, I was always hit with a pang in my stomach at the thought of what they would think if they knew I hadn't had electricity or gas in my house for a straight month. Would they still laugh? So I hid who I was and sort of forgot at the same time, and it really came back to fuck me when I started entering adulthood. At the same time, poverty probably made me more empathetic to the people around me. I'm really sensitive to suffering and can easily see different points of view and understand a person's feelings without them saying a word. Also, I learned not to have a child at 20. Probably the most important lesson of all. Not having a choice whether I wanted to work in high school or not. As soon as I hit 16, there was no option. I had friends that drove in a car their parents paid for, went out on the town using their parents' credit cards, etc. I'm grateful that I was responsible for myself early on because it's made me a self-sufficient adult. When you're younger, getting really excited for the new clothes, which are actually very old and secondhand, and then later growing up and feeling self-pity for never having experienced real clothing shopping, and choosing the clothes that get to go in your closet, and feeling embarrassed and ashamed that you used to brag about these new clothes when they probably looked to everyone else like stain-filled declarations of your wealth or lack thereof. Oh, and not wanting to let people know you reuse and basically only use the plastic-free spoons and forks from the mall food court and plastic one-time use party bowls from the dollar store. How to occupy time. When I was a kid, I had a used bike from Goodwill, a library card, and the outdoors to occupy myself. Mind you, I grew up in the city, so we're not exactly talking rolling hills to play on or rivers to swim in. My mom would kick us out of the house every morning during the summer, and it was up to me to figure out how to spend my day without spending any money. My 2 toddler nieces, God love them, but they have an entire basement filled with toys, a pool, a huge backyard, tree house, and a dog, and still my sister has to spend all summer gallivanting with them to parks and day camps and malls and all manner of things just to keep them entertained. Being able to make a really great meal out of stuff you'd not otherwise considering being able to use. For example, spaghetti and meatballs. I have no pasta sauce, but I do have beef and pasta. I also have salsa, the kind that comes in a jar for chips, several packages of taco seasoning, the tomato sauce that comes with it, tomato paste, and V8 juice. You can use Clamato as well, just about tomato cocktail will do as long as it's that kind of thick sort. Mix the taco seasoning with some V8 juice in a pot. Add your tomato taco sauce as well as the salsa and tomato paste. While that is heating up, cook your pasta and meatballs. When your meatballs are nicely brown, add to your pasta sauce and cook until thickened. Then pour over your cooked pasta. This is actually really delicious. Back to school shopping. My mom used to pick up a second job in the summer so we could get clothes for school. One summer she got a job at Kmart and then got the Kmart credit card, which could also be used at Sears. That was a hell of a year. First pair of Nikes happened that year, 6th grade. I grew up pretty poor and still kind of am, and my SO's family is pretty well off / upper middle class, and every time he comes to pick me up to hang out or something, he and his family are always super judgmental about the area I live in, which isn't impoverished or anything, but it's certainly not a gated community like their house, and make super condescending remarks like, "Oh, looks like that house is falling apart. Hope we don't get shot," or something, and it just breaks my heart because this is where I grew up, and really all I know, uneasy face. Using sticks as toys, all the time. Also, walking door to door in the summer / winters with snow shovels / lawn mowers to save for things that other kids were just given like a bike or a video game console. And because your neighborhood is kind of poor, you spend days literally walking around for nothing, not getting a single job. I grew up poor but rural poor, and I think it was a different experience. We lived off the land mostly. Huge gardens that gave us fruit and vegetables that we ate fresh in the summer and canned in the winter. We didn't have any toys / gadgets / or stuff, but no one around us really did, and we spent our days playing in the fields, climbing trees, swimming in the creek, etc. We didn't really know that other people had lots of stuff. Once a year we got store-bought cookies, and once a year we went out for a breakfast bagel, otherwise everything was home-cooked / baked. Again, we thought we had it made. We had no idea others did this all the time. We took family vacations and camped in free places and played at the beach. We never hired anyone to provide any kind of service. Either my parents fixed it or a friend would help, but it was all in-house jobs. We ate very simply but pretty healthy. We did drink powdered milk and lived a very, very simple life, but it was a very happy one. Being called out for wearing the same clothes and shoes your brother wore a year ago. Not being able to buy new textbooks, so you have to use old ones which are already filled in. Eating from cans twice a week. Eating the same meal 3 days straight. Not buying anything when your friends decide to go to the grocery store. Making a lot of jokes, so hopefully people won't notice how desperate your home situation actually is. It did make me care a lot less about what other people think about me, though. You felt rich if you got cable. You learned to like the food at school because that was probably the only meal you would eat. Wearing the same clothes for 5 years. If you could get away with stealing some nice-looking shoes, you do it. That there are churches that give out some food. Washing your clothes in the sink. The beauty of having staples in the pantry. When I'm stressed, I go look in my pantry. Knowing I will have something to eat makes me feel safe. Those cans of tomatoes and veggies, tinned tuna fish, dry bags of rice and beans, they represent safety and security. Knowing I will be able to eat and to feed my grandchildren feels like a great privilege, and I do not take food for granted. I never realized how poor we were when we had fruit and nut trees in the backyard. That's a constant supply of healthy breakfast, snacks, and juice that our mom didn't have to save for. When we moved, she got pretty resourceful. If we were broke, she'd sneak us in a price club, and we'd devour little samples, then duck out before anyone noticed. We went to every open house for everything and pretended to be interested in real estate, while we stuffed our bags with muffins and croissants. All our movie rentals were from the library. SeaWorld would give you a free day pass if you picked up a few bags of garbage off the beach. The beach! Oh man, being in a good climate where you can enjoy nature really takes your mind off it. She was good at taking our minds off of it, so we wouldn't notice. And we did our best to pretend that we didn't notice by not asking for things because it would make her sad. And in our own ways, we realized that things aren't that important. Something I've noticed as I've gotten older is that I'm good at getting up in the morning. I'm not a morning person, but when my alarm goes off at 6, I get up. Most people I know grumble and hit the snooze twice, or wait for their so/parent to wake them up. I assume my ability to get up on my own with no complaint is from the fact that my mom was a shift worker, and as such from around the age of 7 or 8, I had to get myself up, make myself breakfast/lunch for the day, and get myself to school. Kids who have a parent at home, I guess, don't find it so necessary to drag themselves out of bed with enough time to do such things. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.